Am I the only one who has some trust issues regarding the political opinions of some of YouTube's biggest progressive news and politics channels since the 2024 election?
This is what I would say is my most realistic map, right? My most likely to be close map, okay? This one is Kamala 319, Trump 219.
You know, in the lead up to the 2024 election between Kamala and Trump, my gut was telling me that Trump is going to win. My gut was telling me that it's going to be a low turnout election, that Kamala being tied to the high inflation that happened and occurred during the Biden administration and her inability to sort of separate herself from this, that this is going to result in lower turnout. She's not going to be able to ride the sort of anti-Trump wave that Biden rode in 2020, which meant major gains in voter turnout for the Democrats, and that Trump is going to get the same amount of votes that he gets in 2016, 2020, and 2024, and that Kamala, she's just not going to have the energy, and she's going to lose it. This was my gut feeling, but I was convinced otherwise, guys. I was convinced otherwise by what I now view as political cheerleading.
In a worst case scenario for Kamala, best case scenario for Trump map, I still have Kamala winning. 276 electoral votes.
Now, I'm a big fan of Kyle Kulinski. I've watched Secular Talk since like 2012, and I always viewed Kyle Kulinski as someone who was willing to tell the hard truths. You know, he said it in 2016, guys, be careful. Trump has a real chance of winning this. Hillary, just sort of like Kamala, it's going to be a low turnout, low energy election, and she's not going to get that type of energy that Obama had in 2008 or 2012, or, to be honest, what Biden had in 2020.
So again, my prediction can only be as good as the available information, and the information is not crystal clear in this case. Now, there are some goofy-ass pollsters who think it is crystal clear, and they're giving Hillary Clinton 98% chance of victory. I think that is comically, laughably stupid. What you cannot quantify and factor in is how they are running their campaigns. I had noticed some troubling things about how Hillary was running her campaign, and some things about Trump that it was a decent campaign when he kept, hammering her on TPP, hammering her on foreign policy, hammering her on corruption. I said, if these trends continue, the election is going to tighten up. She ain't no 85% chance to win.
And in 2024, he was sniffing that MSNBC Democratic Party cheerleading stuff. He was smoking that good. He was smoking that loud. Because, a lot of his videos in the lead up to this election where, Kamala, she's going to win it. Oh, all the polls, they're all underestimating Kamala Harris. She's really way more ahead in the polls than what these pollsters are saying. She's actually leading. There's an early vote surge. Kamala's having an early vote surge. She's actually just as popular as Obama was in 2008. He was really sniffing that MSNBC, that good stuff.
You have Kamala wins Nevada, Kamala wins Arizona, Kamala wins Georgia, Kamala wins North Carolina, Kamala wins Pennsylvania and the Blue Wall State. So this is basically Kamala winning like all of the swing states.
And I thought that someone like Kyle Kulinski, he understood what's going on in the country. He understood that the high inflation of the Biden administration, that this and Kamala's inability to separate herself from this administration, which he was a part of, that this was going to be politically toxic. It doesn't matter who started the inflation. It doesn't matter what the cause of the inflation was. What matters is it happened during Biden's tenure, and Kamala's part of that. She's tied to that. And that's going to cause people not to be energized behind her campaign. But these guys, they were cheerleading Kamala. They were saying, oh, she's going to be amazing. And someone who I also used to watch back in like 2010, 2011, 12, David Pakman. He's been sniffing that MSNBC good stuff for years. I trusted him less and I knew he was more into this clickbaity content, but he really made me think that the Trump campaign, the Republican Party, that it's in a state of failure, that Trump, it's empty rallies, the guy's cognitively declined. It's over for him. The polls are showing Kamala way up in Wisconsin. There's no way that Kamala could lose Wisconsin. She's +9. They were also talking about this poll in Iowa where Kamala was somehow like +12. So, they really did this. And this shows you the damage of this political cheerleading, because it made a lot of people, and especially the Democratic Party, they became comfortable hiding themselves from the reality, from the difficult truth. And that was that no matter who was running for the Republicans in 2024, it was going to be a tough election. It was going to be difficult to win this election no matter what. David Pakman, though, he was constantly saying, oh, Trump's given up in New Hampshire. Trump's cognitively declined. And you know what really triggered me about David Pakman was that he would constantly talk about Trump's cognitive decline, constantly talk about, oh, he's not fit to be president. But at the same time, he would constantly defend Biden's cognitive ability. He would constantly push Biden and say, oh, he's actually quite good. Don't worry about it, guys. Biden, he's just a bit slower. He's a bit older. He's not cognitively declined. Well, listen, guys, if you're going to talk about Trump's cognitive decline constantly while Joe Biden, a Democrat, is the president, I'm sorry. But for me, you are a political cheerleader and you're actually doing major damage to this movement.
Hi, David. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me, David. If you don't mind, I'd like to be a little bit mean today.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you a question based on my impression of your coverage about Trump's cognitive decline. So I noticed that you had a lot of coverage on Trump's cognitive issues. He says a lot of bizarre things. And you also had some experts on who had some pretty interesting and compelling evidence that Trump was experiencing potential mild cognitive impairment. But from my perspective, and feel free to correct me here, it seemed like you did not have as much coverage on Biden's cognitive decline.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his cognitive decline was quite apparent, at least from my perspective, in that debacle of a debate this week. So I wanted to just directly ask you, before the debate happened, before the whole event happened, what was your assessment of the cognitive ability of both candidates?
So this is a good question, Adrian. Let's take the questions one by one. Let's start with that. So as a non-professional in this field myself, I was relying on experts. When I would give the experts the opportunity to weigh in on both Trump and Biden, their consensus pre-debate was Biden seems to be experiencing appropriate and expected age-related slowing down, whereas Trump is having a more serious issue. That was their view. And as a non-expert myself, that's what I went with. We have since seen not only Biden's performance at the debate, but we now have sourced reporting that says there are people around Biden managing his schedule to make him be out in public during his better hours. So now that I have additional information, my perspective has changed. Again, as a non-expert who's just following what are the experts saying, what are the sources saying.
And that's really what I want to talk about in this video, is that these types of political cheerleading, what happens at MSNBC, what happens in the Democratic Party's establishment, because these guys essentially, for a couple months, Kyle Kulinski and David Pakman now for years, they are essentially members of this Democratic Party media apparatus, whether we like to admit it or not. And this media apparatus, which did not want to tell the hard truths, did not want to face the facts with Joe Biden and the fact that he in no way or form should ever have run for a second term, and that it should have been made extremely clear from the beginning. Listen, Joe, you are a one-term president. But it was this cheerleading, it was this protecting him, it was this keeping Joe Biden in his bubble where he didn't get exposed, where they made sure he was only doing media appearances during his good hours during the day, where they made sure he never actually had to answer questions to any reporters in a press conference. And this cheerleading, this keeping him in the bubble, this saying all the time Trump is cognitively declined, oh, Biden, he's okay. Well, this came back to haunt every single person because it gave the Democrats a complete false sense of reality, so much so in a state of high inflation, a president who can't really do debates, who can't really do solid public speaking appearances, that this guy had any chance of winning the 2024 presidential election. And it's this exact type of cheerleading which made people not come to terms with the realities that this, no matter who was running for the Democrats, was going to be a tough election to win just because of inflation and the rising cost of living, because that makes anybody less popular when they're in charge and there's 8, 9, or even 10% inflation. So we really got to make sure that this type of stuff doesn't happen again, where this type of situation is not guarded and protected and then the whole bubble pops when there's the Joe Biden versus Donald Trump debate. I mean, the whole reality, this whole fake reality that had been built up by the Democrats and the media, MSNBC, and by the David Pakmans, and in part by the Kyle Kulinskis, came crushing down after this debate. And the Democrats were then put in a very, very difficult situation where if they had been truthful since the beginning, if they hadn't kept themselves in this bubble since the beginning, well, there would have been a primary. And Kamala Harris would have never won this primary. So she would have never become the candidate. I mean, did everybody forget the 2019 primary where she was forced to drop out before voting even started? Now, who would have become the candidate? I don't know. Maybe Pete Buttigieg, maybe someone else, maybe Gavin Newsom. But I really believe someone who would have had a better chance of winning this election. And at the end of the day, the high inflation, it was caused in part because it was the end of the zero interest rate era. It was the cause and effect of these multiple quantitative easings that happened in 2008, in 2020 because of COVID. And of course, it was accelerated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which meant a spike in energy prices. It was sort of this perfect storm where you then also had supply chain issues from China. And so no matter what happened in 2024, it was going to be a difficult election to win simply because of the inflation that started during the Biden administration. And in a way, guys, this is where the hard truths have to be said, because I think it's going to be a while until the Democrats win another election truly handedly and in truly sort of a landslide fashion. Because I view this sort of similarly to Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, I think he was a good president, but he had the unlucky fact that you had the OPEC oil embargo, you had the oil shortage, and you had this oil crisis of the late 1970s, which caused inflation to spike. And that happened under his term. And guys, inflation, it causes people to lose faith in the government. It causes people to lose faith in whoever is perceived as the causer of that inflation. So you essentially had two landslide Reagan election wins after Carter. You had a George H.W. Bush sort of very handily winning the 1988 election. And if it wasn't for Ross Perot, you would have had George W. Bush beating Bill Clinton in 1992. So it took the Democrats over 10 years, 15 years to really win back the faith of the American people to have the president be a Democrat again after Jimmy Carter and that era of high inflation. And I don't think it's going to take that long now because of the craziness of MAGA, because of also the worsening economic situation under Donald Trump. But it's going to take a while for it to be a handed landslide 2008 type election. And I'm starting to get a bit worried now because when I go on Secular Talk's YouTube page, when I go on David Pakman's YouTube page, I see Trump is the most unpopular he's ever been. Trump is the most unpopular president in history. Oh, these special elections that are happening. Oh, it's really, really bad for Republicans. Republicans are collapsing. Oh, Democrats, they're going to win this next election so handedly. And let's not forget that while the Republicans and Trump are super unpopular, the Democrats are the most unpopular they've been in decades. This is not going to be a walk in the park. This is not going to be easy. And we can't think that it's going to because of this type of cheerleading. And I'm worried that this is going to happen again, where everyone's going to think, oh, it's going to be a blue wave in the 2026 midterm elections. And the reality on the ground is that while Trump is unpopular, the Democrats are super unpopular, and it's going to be another low turnout election, which we all know always benefits the GOP. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. I know I'm sort of, biting the hand that feeds me. I mean, of course, I like Kyle Kulinski. I like Secular Talk. I think what he does is very important. But I'm just saying that we have to be careful in this space that we don't become cheerleaders. And I really want to avoid that because at the end of the day, then you're doing the same type of political news and politics coverage and reporting that Fox News does. Because Fox News is cheerleading. They don't want their viewers to see that Trump is mentioned 3,000 times in the Epstein files. They don't want their viewers to see the reality that Trump is becoming more and more unpopular as the days go on. And this was in part one of the reasons why he lost the 2020 election. I mean, if he had just come out and said, listen, guys, we're going to fight COVID, we're going to do this, and not made it this total disaster, he would have walked, I think, easily to re-election. Because the economy up until COVID was quite strong. I mean, it was still that era of Obama, but still, whether you like it or not, the economy was pretty strong in that era. And it was this sort of political cheerleading from his side where he didn't see the realities that he was super unpopular when it came to his COVID reaction. And he thought people would like how he reacted to it. And that resulted in him losing the 2020 election. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you're new hit that subscriber button. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. I really appreciate all the support from every single one of you, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.